a loaded Thursday East Coast bias right here on FanDuel TV. Of course, for our friends on the Ringer Gambling Show feed. I think it's as good a weekend in the NFL as we have had all year. There are monstrous matchups to get to. Chiefs-Bills game of the year. We'll get to House's Commies taking on the Eagles on Thursday night. A big one later on this evening. Steelers-Ravens. Really, really good card of football. Let's welcome into Triple Threat. John Jastremski, Joe House, Raheem Palmer as Week 11 awaits in the NFL. And Joe House, before we get to this cavalcade, this beautiful slate of football that we have coming our way, I'm going to ask you guys a quick question, a quick hitter on the Monday night game that we broke down and actually got the underdog correct. We actually, on the Ringer Sunday pregame, went 4 for 4. So I hope you parlayed that. I know some gentlemen did on FanDuel. Don't do that with the wisest wagers. Maybe Raheem and Sal's, not you. Me and you, House, not so much. Maybe go the other way. But I bring all of this up. Dolphins, super impressive. Defense holds Stafford, Nakua, and Kupp out of the end zone for 4 quarters. House, did we learn more about the Dolphins and what may come for them over the next few weeks? Or did we learn more about the Rams in the Monday night game that we just watched?
I would say yes and yes. We learned a lot about the Dolphins and we learned a lot about the Rams. What we learned about the Rams is we can take that ticket that we were very excited about for them to make the playoffs when it was a couple of weeks ago in the 4-1 range, even north of that. Take that thing and light it on fire. You can roll it up, maybe mix it with an herb of your liking.
Wow, that's it? House already lighting it on fire after one loss? That's it?
Well, they had to win that game because what they have left on their schedule, there really isn't a path. I think the NFC is going to require 10 wins, and I don't they're going to have tiebreaker luck. On the other hand, by contradistinction, JJ, the Dolphins are kind of live now. There is not a very big margin for error with this Dolphins team. But their next 2 games, if we're looking at the Miami Dolphins in the next 2 games sitting at 5-6 with 6 games left on their schedule, I think that there's a path yet. It is really up to that defense. And that was a super impressive performance. It has been the thing we've been at. I reached out to you, JJ. I said, is this the most impressive performance of a Dolphins team under Mike McDaniel? Because for that team to go on the road and hold the Rams without a touchdown, I was only half kidding, buddy.
And it was super impressive for him. Listen, I thought the Dolphins would show up. Game didn't necessarily go according to script, but Dolphins got Zach Sealer back on that defense. They got Javon Holland back on that defense. And Matthew Stafford and the Rams were basically uncomfortable from quarter 1 to quarter 4. And now we've seen the market move dramatically. The odds for the Rams to go and win the NFC West have taken a major hit. Their postseason odds have taken a major hit. So, Dream, I'll ask you the same question I asked House. Did you learn more about the Dolphins or the Rams watching that Monday night game?
I think it was definitely the Rams. And the big reason why is because we have a 2-week trend of this Rams offense really not looking good at all. When you look at the last 2 weeks, they're 24th in EPA per play. And they have really struggled offensively. Matthew Stafford is a guy that, you come into this season and he has the pedigree of somebody who can carry a team, and he missed a ton of easy throws. He missed a throw for a touchdown where you had the running back in the flat wide open. And, the game against Seattle, he had just a 56% completion percentage. So if Matthew Stafford isn't going to play like that top tier quarterback that we've seen throughout his entire career, this Rams team isn't going anywhere. But on the other end, I will say that the defense has been playing a lot better. So if you can just match up with what the defense has been doing the last couple of weeks, and you can get that level where Matthew Stafford is playing to his potential, I do think the Rams can make a run.
Yeah, I'm with you, Raheem. I was impressed watching that Ram defense on Monday night. They have a lot of young studs on that defensive line. They've kind of churned in some new talent, and they were disruptive getting in the face of Tua. Dolphins couldn't run the ball at all. They've been running on everybody over the last couple of weeks. So I'm with you. I'm not right now. It's weird with me with the Rams because I bet them as an under at the beginning of the year at 8.5. Then I came back and got crazy playoff odds because they were like at 4-1. And I'm sitting there saying, you know what? with the NFC being the way that it is in that division, the pedigree of McVay and Stafford, I got to take a flyer and get a little action on 4-1. It's dicey, right? Like I can easily live in a world where I see the Rams finishing up 7-10 this year, where it's just not meant to be. But when you have that pedigree of Stafford and McVay, and like this week is a perfect example, House. I mean, they're favored against the New England Patriots. I know New England just beat Chicago, who we're going to get to momentarily. But you win this game against the Patriots, all of a sudden those guys are feeling their oats again. I'm not ready to just stick a fork in the Rams quite yet. You might be. I'm not ready to go there, House. I got to see it this Sunday.
It's just a function of how tough the NFC is. Somebody in the NFC North is going to have to fall out, either Minnesota or Green Bay. They have two teams ahead of them in the West, in Arizona and San Francisco, that they have to climb over to get there, or they need Washington to fall apart. And it just feels like a lot of ifs. They need injuries. They don't control the outcome, because I really do think it's going to take 10 wins to make the playoffs in the NFC this year.
And one note on the tiebreakers: Rams have a heads-up win over San Francisco, dramatic win earlier in the year. Arizona smoked the Rams going all the way back to week 2. So, those tiebreakers are going to play a role. And obviously the NFC West, one of the more competitive divisions the sport has to offer. In fact, if you're looking 1 through 4 as a whole, it is without question the most competitive division the sport has to offer. Raheem, I still think at the end of the day, the Niners are winning the division, though. I do. Now that they got McCaffrey back, I feel like they've weathered the storm. Like, I'm looking at that division. If I had to give you a gut feel pick, and remember, before that Seattle Thursday night game, I locked it in, even money to win the division. I still think it's San Francisco's division to lose. I know Arizona's look good. Give them credit. I think the Niners win this thing. I do.
See, the Niners can win this thing, but I don't know if they're a good bet to place. What are they, plus 115 to win the division? Like, it's tough to back them at this price. It feels like you're paying a premium. And, as well as the 49ers have, played, it almost feels like this team is snake bitten in some ways. They've beaten themselves all year long. You're talking about a team that is 28th in red zone touchdown percentage. The only teams worse are the Packers, Rams, Cowboys, and Giants. Now, you can say maybe that regresses to the mean, but if it doesn't, then you're going to continue to have this Niners team lose games in which they should have won. So I don't know if I necessarily can get there, but I can understand you making them the favorite.
All right, House, right now the books have Niners plus 105 to Raheem's point. Rams super long shot now at 9-1. Seattle's at 12-1. They got the Arizona Cardinals all the way up to plus 140 to win the NFC West. Pretty wild.
I prefer the Cardinals, and I think the right way to play this is week by week, game by game. But we had this conversation with Anthony DeBundo on Monday and went through the special teams rankings, and I just will not again trust this Niners team with a 30th ranked special teams. That introduces so much variance into these outcomes on an adjusted score basis. If you look at how efficient San Francisco was, that was a double-digit win for them, but they turned it into a one possession game because their special teams was hot effing garbage. So I don't think that you can get into a future position with this Niners team when that hot garbage is part of the equation. It just introduces too much variance. You have to pick your spots game by game, I think.
I want to get to hot garbage before we start breaking down these games. Speaking of hot garbage, Raheem, the Chicago Bears offense would fit that description to a T. It was deplorable last Sunday against the New England Patriots. It has been impossible to watch over the last few weeks. They hire an offensive coordinator at the beginning of the year. He's now gone. They make a change going into this game against the Green Bay Packers. Number one, Raheem, can this spark the Bears offensively in any way? Number two, we talked about how overvalued this Bears-Packers line has become. It's dramatically overvalued. Does this change of coordinator maybe have you inclined to go and get off the beaten path a little bit with a Bears bet? Or are the Bears so broken that it's like, I need evidence that they can go and play functional offense before I'm going to go and wager on them? Where do you stand on Chicago?
I can't wager on Chicago at all. And you look since the bye week, this team is dead last in EPA per play. They can't score. They scored 15 points against the Washington Commanders, 9 points against the Cardinals, 3 points against the Patriots. Like, those aren't good defenses. So if that's what you're doing, I don't know if an offensive coordinator changes anything, particularly when you have injuries on the offensive line. You got multiple guys banged up, and Caleb Williams feels like he's regressed. You have guys in the locker room rumored to saying that they want the backup in. So if you don't want your rookie quarterback playing, there's turmoil in the locker room. I don't know how you can back this team with the injuries that they have. It just feels like Matt Eberflus is on his way out after this season, and he tried to save himself by firing the offensive coordinator, but I don't think it's going to work. So it's Bears or pass, but I'm staying away from this game.
Yeah, I can't get anywhere near the Bears. They went on my do not bet list after the Hail Mary against Washington. They immediately went onto my, that's it, I'm not betting this team for the rest of the season, because there is an institutional rot with this Chicago Bears team. And the institution is in the form of the coaching staff, who has this team not ready for prime time. They acquired a bunch of assets on the offensive side of the ball, but the assets that were going to be most important was the offensive line. And they haven't had health on the offensive line, and it's one of the worst performing offensive lines in the NFL, and it has caused their rookie quarterback, to Dream's point, yes, indeed, to regress. He's holding on to the ball too long. They took 9 sacks last week. They lead the NFL in sacks, and Caleb Williams is officially the worst in the NFL at sack avoidance. The Green Bay Packers own this Bears team. They are indeed the Chicago Bears daddy, and, the Packers have covered 5 straight times in Chicago. They've won every one of those by at least 7. They've won 12 of their last 13 there. They're 11-2 against the spread at Soldier Field since 2011. Like, what's the thesis for getting anywhere near this smelly Bears team? I'm not going to bet it either, but nothing about the situation looks good for the Bears.
Sure seems like a Packers or pass because of the trends and the history of what Green Bay has done to Chicago over time, throwing the fact that the Bear offense is an out-and-out, unmitigated disaster. And if you've been on the Bears this week, say your prayers. You better hope for a little divine intervention. That would be my advice, just because history is not going to be on your side. All right, we got a lot to get to. A lot of juicy games to break down. We'll get to a Steeler-Raven game where it actually may set up to be a little bit more open and maybe a little bit more high scoring. Is that crazy to say after what I've seen from the Ravens this year? We'll dive into that. We have Buffalo and Kansas City. Once again, they are giving us Kansas City as an underdog. Am I going to take that opportunity or shy away from it? We'll dive into that. But when we come back, House's C-words. Big game coming up later on this evening against Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles, who have found a little mojo over the last few weeks. We'll have a pick for Thursday night. We will put together an SGP, all that good stuff. The East Coast Bias Boys coming right back. All right, welcome back. Let's get to the first marquee game of the week, and it is a great way to start off Week 11. We have back-to-back Thursday night games that had a whole lot of sizzle. Last week, Cincinnati and Baltimore, I think it's fair to say it lived up to the billing. Let's hope that the Commies and the Eagles will live up to the billing. Okay, Joe House. Tough loss last week to the Steelers. You, my friend, were all over it. Give you credit. Nice pick there. Now, see where it's short week on the road against an Eagle team that has put together much better performances. They beat up on Cooper Rush. They had the big lead, held on against Jacksonville. And Philly, despite some of the early season narratives about the frustrations with Sirianni and what's going on with the Eagles? Hey, they're 7-2. They're right where they want to be. Washington's played great. They're a 3-loss team. We'll start with you, buddy, because it's your team. It's your baby. Where do we stand on Washington, Philadelphia with the Eagles getting 3.5 points?
So I think that Washington is going to be competitive, but I think that ultimately Philly's going to pull this out. And it is a simple function of the quality of the Philadelphia Eagles on both sides of the ball. Washington isn't there yet. They just don't have the personnel. And we saw it in dramatic fashion this past Sunday against Pittsburgh. They are relying on guys that are afterthoughts from other situations and guys that rank very low in the PFF grades. Not that that's the be all or end all, but guys that don't fare well when you apply the metrics. I'm talking about Olamide Zaccheaus, who muffed a punt, and really, if you measure his performance as a receiver, as a third down receiver, he doesn't really belong on the football field. Now that's just a function of the team, being in transition this year. This Washington team, they had no idea that they were going to be this competitive. So I'm going to be gracious about it. I'm being generous. We watched Diami Brown get hit right in the chest with a football in the end zone and drop it. That's who this Washington team is. They just don't quite have the personnel. And the Eagles have found something. They're the number one defense since week 6. Now, they have played a bunch of bums. They got to play the Browns with Deshaun. They got to play the Giants with Danny Dimes. The Bengals, okay, they handled their business against the Bengals, but really they won that game by scoring on every possession in the second half, and they dominated the time possession in the second half. And then the Eagles got the Jaguars, who had the ball with a chance to win on the final possession, then Dallas last week with Cooper Rush. So, yes, the Eagles' numbers on defense are going to look better. This is, in the form of Jaden Daniels, the first dual-threat quarterback that the Eagles are going up against. But I haven't really seen the running version of Jaden since he got his ribs injured. So we haven't seen any of those running performances out of him that approximate the early season. Just tough spot for Washington. I think the Eagles are going to win. I'm not messing around with the 3.5. I'll do some money line kind of stuff with the Eagles. The Eagles love to leave the back door open, so I'm not messing with it. But it's an Eagles side for me, Dream.
Yeah, I agree with House on this. I think this is the Eagles side all day. And, the big reason why is when you look at this game, the Commanders' injury report, it's very concerning. Both starting tackles, Brandon Coleman and Andrew Wiley, they were limited in Monday's practice. So if you don't have those guys and you're going up against this Eagles front seven, I think it's very problematic. And, Marshawn Lattimore on the other end, he's still recovering from his hamstring injury. And we know when A.J. Brown is in the lineup, the Eagles are 6-0 straight up, and they're averaging 30.2 points per game. When he's been out, they're 1-2, averaging 17.3 points per game. So this Eagles team is going to be able to score. And I look at this Commanders team, they're 7th in DVOA, but they've played the 32nd ranked schedule of opposing teams. So this is a big step up in competition. And to me, look, the Commanders, they were playing outstanding to start the year. And at some point, they had to come down. And if it's starting to feel like they're coming down to earth. I mean, earlier in this year, I think they went the first 3 games without actually punting. So they're finally starting to come down to earth. And when it comes to these Thursday night football games, I would love to take the home team and the team that I believe is better. And I believe the Philadelphia Eagles are better. My model makes this game closer to 5 or 6. So at 3.5, I think you're getting some value, especially when you consider that the preseason look-ahead line on this game was Eagles -7, and you got a nice adjustment here. So I would lay it with the Eagles.
I'll make it 3 for 3. I'm on the same page as you fellas. I like Philly in this spot. To me, Philly with A.J. Brown in the lineup is just a much different offensive team. The confidence level that you see in Jalen Hurts when he knows his blankie is there on the outside is eye-opening. And I think we've seen that with the return of A.J. Brown the last few weeks and how much he impacts what Philadelphia is looking to do. And you also saw Washington get exposed in that secondary. I mean, I'm thinking about Mike Williams, who basically got signed off the street by the Jets, running a fly route with the game on the line. Mike Williams is not A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is a lot better. Devontae Smith is a lot better. And I would expect the Eagles are going to be able to exploit that. I think they have found their footing, too, defensively, and maybe grasping what Fangio was looking out of them, from where they were at the beginning of the year to where they are right now. They've looked like a much more confident defense. Now, I am going to throw a little disclaimer out there. They did play Cooper Rush last week. They did end up playing Jacksonville, who we know leaves a lot to be desired. So, maybe a little fool's go with the Eagle defense, but I still think there are too many positive attributes for Philly going into this game. for me to ignore this side. I'm going with the team I trust more. I'm going with the more talented roster. House, it will show me something if Washington's in this game in the fourth quarter. If this is a one-possession game with 5 minutes to go, I think you got to feel good about it, to be honest. This is a tough spot for you boys.
I totally agree with you, and I do have a sneaking suspicion that Washington will be hanging around because you could not discount the Sirianni factor. That man has
That's
a way.
Scary betting on him.
He has a way. And you know, the only thing I want to close the conversation with, Jalen Hurts at -115 to score a touchdown. That is my dead lock, my lead pipe dead lock guarantee of the week.
So we're putting that in the SGP is what you're telling me for Thursday.
That is a
Jalen
leg.
Hurts to score. Lock it up.
That's a lock leg. -115 on the FanDuel Sportsbook right now. You got to get on that quickly.
You know, while we're doing this, we might as well, since we're on the subject, you're going to go with Jalen Hurts. Give me A.J. Brown, 60-plus receiving yards. Let's throw that in. We got to be in on A.J. Brown. We could probably even jack it up even more. You know what, Raheem, let's do 70. I think 70 sounds even better. 70-plus for A.J. Brown.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I was going to say A.J. Brown touchdown, but I actually like his yardage over as well. I think that's the better bet. So I agree with you.
All right, so we got Brown 70 yards. We got Hurts to score a touchdown. We're taking the Eagles to win. We're all in a unified front on that, so we'll just take the Eagle money line. House, give me a commie. We need a commie to throw in here.
Well, I hate to put an under into the mix, but it would be Jaden Daniels under rushing yards because of the observation I made earlier. We just haven't really seen him look as comfortable going up the middle of the field when that's shown itself. And if there's any injury whatsoever on that offensive line, and there is, you know, it compromises his ability to get out, you know, inside that first 5 yards and get the burst going. So I would go under.
That sounds like a four-legger that you want to check out on the FanDuel Sportsbook page. Eagles to win, Jaden Daniels under rushing yards, A.J. Brown over 70-plus receiving yards, and Jalen Hurts, which is House's lead pipe lock of the week, to go and score a touchdown. I like that. Raheem, total. Open at 45.5. It has been bet up to 48.5. Any interest in getting involved with the total?
I would lean towards the under. And, you know, here's another caveat. And I should have mentioned this on my handicap for the Eagles. But who is the offensive coordinator for Washington Commanders? Cliff Kingsbury.
Cliff Kingsbury, correct.
What has he done historically? The first 8 weeks of the season, he's been dominant. But and you can go back to Texas Tech, you can go back to his time in Arizona, his offenses have struggled and his teams have struggled. So I don't know if that Commanders offense that we saw from the first half of the year is going to continue being as good as they were in the second half. So I think this is an under. I don't see a lot of points in this game. My model puts this closer to about 46, 47. So I would lean under here.
House, any interest in the total?
No, I don't want to mess with it because Washington continues to perform on totals. They got 27 against that pretty serious Steelers defense on Sunday. So it's just a stay away. I don't want to mess with it.
We got a lot more coming your way. We got you covered for Thursday Night Football with the Commanders and the Eagles. We got the game of the year in the NFL to get to. And here we are, the undefeated two-time Super Bowl champs are getting points. Am I going to look at that opportunity and seize it? Or am I going to go a different direction? We'll see if the boys are aligned with me on this game. We got Steelers and Ravens to get to. Bengals and Chargers. Really, really, really good week of games. We got you covered right after this. All right, let's get to the rest of the Week 11 card. And, Raheem, I know you have this one already pulled up. I feel like you have maybe a sticky note that you cross out and you just add an extra win anytime we talk about Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs as underdogs. Well, we are in that particular spot here on Week 11 as the Chiefs go to Buffalo to take on Josh Allen and the Bills. Now, you'll have the trend for what the Chiefs are as underdogs, and you will share with the audience. I'm going to remind everybody, though, the Buffalo Bills in the regular season have beaten Kansas City in 2 consecutive years. Take that for what it's worth. Beat them last year in controversial fashion, which really spearheaded the Buffalo comeback in winning the AFC East. If you remember the game, Kadarius Toney being offside, the whole deal there. Buffalo went into Arrowhead 2 years ago and beat them. We know in January it's a much different deal, but we're not in January. We're in the middle of November. It's going to be November the 17th when they play. Raheem, give us the Mahomes underdog trend. And while you're at it, who do you like between the Chiefs and the Bills?
Patrick Mahomes is now 12-1-1 against the spread as an underdog. I always say it all the time. You don't get extra money from fading Patrick Mahomes. So, look, this game's tough for me, though, because, when I look at this matchup, the Chiefs, they're clearly overperforming. They're a 9-0 team who is performing like a team who has won 6 games according to their point differential. But then when you look at the Buffalo Bills, there's a lot to be concerned about. They have cluster injuries at wide receiver. Keon Coleman has already been ruled out. I don't know what's going on with Amari Cooper. Dalton Kincaid, he got injured last week, so we don't know if he's playing. And if you're going in with cluster injuries against a Steve Spagnuolo defense, I just don't know how you overcome that. Now, the Bills were able to overcome these injuries against the Indianapolis Colts, but Joe Flacco basically spotted this team 17 points last week. So I don't know if they're going to be able to do that against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. So I would be looking towards the Chiefs, but I got to remind everybody, my model actually makes the Buffalo Bills -2.5 to 3-point favorites. So from a numbers perspective, there's a reason why the Bills are favorite here. But at the same time, I refuse to bet against Patrick Mahomes in these spots. It's just not a winning. It's not a positive expected value wager long term. So I'm staying off of this game right now. Maybe that'll change on Sunday, but I would probably lean towards the Chiefs.
Yeah, Dream's point is the right point, JJ. You don't get any extra credit for fading Patrick Mahomes. I have one way that I want to play this. I've already played it, and I honestly think across the Week 11 slate, there are a ton of games that line up so beautifully with the teaser leg. If you're going to give me...
I feel like we've been saying this a lot the last couple of weeks, House, and for what it's worth, it's been profitable.
They've been hitting.
It's been profitable.
Yes, sir. We've been cashing some of these. That Chargers Eagles last week was a giant winner. Didn't have to sweat that for 10 seconds. But look, give me the Chiefs plus the 8.5. I mean, we can go into the X's and the O's. I do like the situation of that Chiefs defense coming in third rushing defense by DVOA numbers, number 3 in the entire NFL. And with the injuries that Buffalo's experiencing in its receiving core, do they want to try and establish the run? Yes, they do. Are they going to be able to do against this Chiefs defense? Probably not. So I like the way the X's and the O's line up, but really just give me the Chiefs plus 8.5. I'll find another delicious leg to pair that with. Maybe 2 legs, could be 3-legger. But look, just keep it simple. Let's do over a touchdown for the Chiefs and figure out a way to make some cash, JJ.
I have no problem with that. I fully expect this to be a close game. I think Buffalo's going to win, guys. I mean, here's why. If Kansas City wins this game, then I am fully on board with the idea that they might run the table this year. Despite the fact that Raheem nailed that they are clearly outperforming what they should be doing with the way they've pulled a couple of these games out of the fire. The Denver game, the Atlanta game, the Baltimore game. I'm not going to bore you. Every single one of these Chiefs games, it feels like it plays out in similar ways, and it's the same old song and dance. I just think Buffalo is not going to be intimidated. They've played them a bunch. They've had success against them in the regular season. And I just think the angle of getting the revenge spot, being back at home, Allen, Mahomes, it's guys, this will not be my wisest wager. I'm telling you right now, it won't be. But what's my gut feel? My gut feel is Buffalo's going to win the game. I do, Raheem. I don't think Kansas City's going 17-0 this year. And I just think they have been playing with fire the last few weeks. Sooner or later, you're going to lose a game here, right? Like, it's got to happen eventually.
So you mentioned something interesting because right now, if you guys go on FanDuel Sportsbook, under win specials, they have the Kansas City Chiefs' first loss of 2024-2025 regular season. And they have odds for those. But they also have odds for the Kansas City Chiefs to go 17-0. And that is priced at plus 800. So you guys should look at those odds if you want to grab that. But they also have their first loss of the season. I mean, they got Carolina Panthers plus 13-1. Las Vegas Raiders plus 15-1. Chargers plus 750. Cleveland Browns plus 11-1. Houston Texans 12-1. Pittsburgh Steelers 15-1, and then finally week 18, the Broncos 23-1. So go on FanDuel Sportsbook right now. If you think they beat the Buffalo Bills, maybe there's some juicy odds for, going 17-0, or maybe you want to pick your spot on one of these other games.
The only thing that would give me hesitation, House, in thinking about the Chiefs going undefeated, they play this weird schedule quirk. Because of the fact that the NFL is like, we're playing Christmas Day. We don't care if it's a Wednesday. We're going to have a gazillion people watching. We know the deal. But the Chiefs play like a Saturday, Wednesday scenario.
Yes.
Against good teams, too. They're playing the
Houston
Texans and then they're playing the Steelers.
Right. Yeah, that's
and
right.
As important and as cool as it might be to say, hey, we're the first ones to go and do it, man, from an injury standpoint, if you have any guys that are nicked up and any guys that are questionable, if they got everything locked up, including a 1 seed, why are you going to go balls to the wall in those games? It makes no sense.
Makes no sense whatsoever. And I've advocated, I think on the Bill Simmons podcast, the Chiefs, if I were the Chiefs, I would go ahead and try and take care of business at that Saturday game against the Texans and then just punt that Steelers game. Get everybody on the practice squad up and let them go play on Christmas on national TV. They get absolutely nothing out of taking that giant risk proposition and trying to win that game. Congratulations on the undefeated regular season if they lose in the first round because their guys are all bashed up from trying to recover from that Christmas game. I'm just not buying it.
The only thing, House, that I would say, though, if they take that game off, and we have plenty of time to discuss the ad nauseum of this, that would mean, because week 18 would roll around and in Kansas City we're talking about them potentially getting a bye, that you'd be going almost a month without playing football. That's a long time. So you want to tell me, maybe then that puts a little more pressure on getting guys out there in week 18 to play them. You know what I mean?
If there's any team in the entire NFL that I'm not worried about preparation-wise, depending on, a rest situation, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. I get it.
That's a long time, though. To go from basically December 25th or whatever it is, the 21st, to middle of January, I get it. It's a long, long time. But we got time for that.
But you know what? I think we may be getting ahead of ourselves because right now, the Kansas City Chiefs are 9-0. And you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, they are 7-2. And if the Chiefs lose one of these games, that week 17 game could actually mean home field advantage throughout the postseason.
That's a great point.
Well,
it's a great point.
That is a good transition, Raheem, because we are going to get to the Ravens and the Steelers in a game that, historically speaking, is always a 3-point game. They gave us a 3.5 early in the week. That disappeared immediately. Now it is at 3. You know what's interesting, Raheem? This game normally is low scoring. It's tight. It's 16-13. It's 2017. The Steelers have been a little better on offense. The Ravens' strength of the team is their offense, not their defense. I could see Steelers-Ravens having sneaky over potential. Can you see a world where we have some points with the Steelers and the Ravens for a change?
I can definitely see that world. And I'm looking at my model right now as you say that. And I actually have this closer to 50 than the market does. I mean, the market has this at 47.5, 48 right now. This opened at 45.5 at FanDuel Sportsbook, and people are betting this game up. And we all know this Ravens offense is for real. They're averaging 30 points a game and 7.1 yards per play. This offense is serious. And if you ask me, when you look at this Pittsburgh Steelers defense, it's not like they've played juggernauts defensively. We watched Dak Prescott absolutely carve this team up. So if the Cowboys were able to do that, what are the Ravens going to be able to do? Now, the caveat on that is that if you look at historically between these two teams, Lamar Jackson's really struggled against the Steelers team. He's 1-4 straight up against the Steelers in his career. passer rating of 66.8, 870 yards, 4 touchdowns, 7 interceptions in 5 games. And you look at the point totals, 10 points, 16 points, 19 points, 24 points, and 14 points. Now, you have to ask yourself, is this Ravens offense with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry going to be different against this Steelers defense? I don't know what the answer is to that question. That's something that you have to figure out.
Well, part of the thing that's going to help factor into the thinking and the analysis, Alex Highsmith, I believe, has been ruled out. And if he's out, that's a very significant diminution of the overall efficiency of that Pittsburgh defense, because he's been incredible. The last 7 of these games has gone under. So if you want to just play basic regression, then over is the right way to play it. But the numbers are incredible for the underdog in this series, incredible for Pittsburgh as the dog in this series. Tomlin has been outrageous. Underdogs 10-1-1 against the spread, 9-3 straight up in the last 12 matchups. Each of the last 5 times that the Steelers have arrived as an underdog, they've won outright. And you can go through all of the 20 years of Mike Tomlin up against John Harbaugh. When these two guys go against each other, the underdog is 23-6-3 against the spread. Kudos to both these two boys being head coaches for as long as they have. A real sample size for us to take a look at, but you got to have something on the Steelers as a dog. You can't just ignore the way that these tight division matchups have gone over history here.
Totally get it. And some trends mean a lot more than others. The Steelers and the Packers. Steelers because they fit the model and the mold of, hey, take the underdog in a Ravens-Steeler game. Packers obviously fit the mold of just being able to dominate Chicago. A lot of trends throwing your way here on East Coast Bias. All right, we got one more game to get to. Cincinnati and the Chargers. Thank goodness this game got flexed into Sunday night. We don't have to sit there in a standalone audience and watch the Jets and the Indianapolis Colts. Thank you, NFL. Thank you, schedule makers. House, this line stinks to the high heavens. Everyone is going to bet Cincinnati. My initial lean was I'm going to bet Cincinnati. And the more and more I've thought about this game, the more and more I've become hesitant on that particular idea because of how well coached and how tough the Los Angeles Chargers are now with Jim Harbaugh coaching the team. Raheem, you already called it. The dibs are for you, amigo. You called this the rat line of the week for week 11. House, where do you stand on a desperate Cincinnati team with extra rest getting ready for Harbaugh and the Chargers?
Yeah, so I was in the same place as you. I thought that I was going to get super invested in Cincinnati and that we were going to pull the skirt up for the Chargers and see exactly what is underneath there, not be very impressed. Bengals are 5-0 against the spread on the road thus far this year. But here's the problem for me with backing the Bengals. Justin Herbert is getting healthy. And Justin Herbert, is moving the ball down the field. We are looking at this cast of unknown receivers for the Chargers that are now becoming knowns because Justin Herbert is getting the ball to them. The Bengals' inability to run at all it means that the Chargers get to just tee up and tee off on Burrow. I don't like it. We just watched the Ravens go up against the Bengals offensive line, and they banged Burrow quite significantly. I don't like this idea of this Chargers defense, pinning its ears back and getting after them. The Bengals have 4 wins this season. Their 4 wins are against teams that have 9 total victories. So this Chargers team is a different class. I can't back the Bengals, I don't think.
I think this line is too low. So my model actually makes the Chargers 3.5 to 4 point favorites, and they're laying 1.5 now. And if you look at how people are betting, the whole world is betting on the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm seeing 84% of the bets and 94% of the money on the Cincinnati Bengals. And it makes sense because the Cincinnati Bengals, they have the more dynamic offense. They're a team who they have Joe Burrow, they have Jamar Chase, they have T. Higgins, but they just played the Ravens, who are 30th in adjusted defensive EPA per play. the Chargers aren't 30th. Like, this team is second in defensive EPA per play. So this is a big step up in class defensively. And look, one thing that we've known about the Cincinnati Bengals all year long is that they could lose to anybody. And I mean literally anybody. They lost to the New England Patriots. Like, the Patriots team is not good. Like, this team is just not what people think they are. They're not a good defense. And I just think the Chargers, they should be power rated higher. Now, I am a little concerned about the Chargers because this is not a team that's played the best competition, but I think they should be higher favorites than this. So I would be looking towards the Chargers personally, but I know the public is going to be all over the Cincinnati Bengals.
Here's my only pushback with the Chargers. I get everything you're saying about Cincinnati. The Chargers, Raheem, have not exactly had a murderous rough schedule. To be fair. I mean, if I look, they played Tennessee last week. They played Cleveland 2 weeks ago. Like, I know we talk about Cincinnati not beating anybody. Totally justified. The Chargers are kind of in that same boat. They've just won a couple more games. Does that scare you at all with some of their metrics maybe being inflated because of a very, very soft schedule?
That does scare me. And I think that's the reason why I haven't necessarily made this a definitive pick. But at the same time, you have to ask yourself, what are the Cincinnati Bengals? The Cincinnati Bengals, at this point in time, they may be on par with some of those teams in which the Chargers have beat. So I know they have the big name quarterback and the sexy wide receiver and everything like that, but the defense is as bad as any defense in this league. So I think sometimes you kind of have to hold your nose and just, make the play based on the numbers. And I think that's what I may end up doing. I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but that's where I may find myself.
When we come back, gang, NBA Cup, it's not too late to go and get a future in. Had some fun games yesterday. What a show out in the Bay Area with Klay Thompson and his return. Steph Curry working his magic. The Knicks, nice little win against Raheem Sixers on that hideous blue court that I feel like I walked out of the Seinfeld Kenny Rogers chicken episode after seeing that court. It's just it's blue instead of red. Maybe a play on the NBA Cup when we come back. All right, boys, welcome back. We had the NBA Cup get underway. Games are fantastic on Tuesday. Knicks Sixer game was decent. The Warrior Mav game was off the rails. I mean, Klay turned back the clock. Curry was like, "You're not beating me, dude. I'm winning this game." And it was a ton of fun to watch. Hopefully we have a lot more games like that over the next few weeks. I could do it out the courts, but that's a story for a different day. Anyway, Raheem, is there somebody we should be looking to bet in the NBA Cup?
The Cleveland Cavaliers, 9-1. I think you're getting a bargain on them to win the NBA Cup. You've seen how they perform. They haven't lost a game yet. Now, we're recording this on Wednesday. This episode drops on Thursday. By this time, you've seen it. They're probably going to beat up on my Philadelphia 76ers. But 9-1, I think the Cleveland Cavaliers are a great bargain. Now, it's unfortunate we recorded this after the start of the NBA Cup. But the one that stood out to me was that the Detroit Pistons were like 11-1 to win Group B. They're in a group with the Milwaukee Bucks, the Indiana Pacers, the Miami Heat, and the Toronto Raptors. And they just beat the Miami Heat in Game 1. They're still plus 370. I still think there's a ton of bargain on the Detroit Pistons to win Group B. So I'll be looking at that. And I'll also be looking at, once again, Cleveland Cavaliers to win Group C. They're in a group with the Boston Celtics. Boston Celtics have already lost one game, but I think the Cleveland Cavaliers are motivated right now. Plus 160. I think that's also another steal.
House, have you bet on anybody to win this thing yet or no?
I just want to let everybody know you are allowed to parlay group winners here. And so the bet that I have indeed fired in, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers to win Group C in the East, the Golden State Warriors, yes, sir, to win Group C in the West. They're right now, after that nice victory against Dallas at plus 125, that parlay pays plus 485. Am I going to make a joke about this being a Group C Cup winner? Yes, I am. We're putting those two together, plus 485, the C Cup parlay, fellas.
I love that.
How about my Knicks being favorite to win the entire thing, Raheem. I'm a little surprised by that. You surprised the Knicks are favored to win this thing? I kind of was.
Yes and no. And I think the big reason why is look at the rest of the group. The Orlando Magic would have been
They're going to win that group. That's an excellent point. They're going to win.
They would have been a viable contender, but Paolo's hurt. The Philadelphia 76ers, they're all in the hospital every night. And in Brooklyn and Charlotte, they're not beating the Knicks.
All right, when we come back, we have best bets. I was going to say our wisest wagers, but those are coming Sunday. So these, for Joe Haas and myself, are going to be way more advantageous. We'll come right back. All right, before we say goodbye, best bets. House, I'm starting with you. I'm glad it's not a wisest wager. That's all I'll say.
I've got two. You got to play the Chicago Bears under team total 17.5 points against the Green Bay Packers. This Bears team can't score. One touchdown in their last 23 possessions, under 17.5. And then you got to have the teaser. We got the Chiefs and the Steelers. Yeah, we'll do it. Steelers up to 9, Chiefs up to 8.5. Two heavyweights. That's two great legs for a teaser. That's the house best bet, Dream.
All right, I'm getting in the Christmas spirit. Got 3 for you guys. I'm going with the Cleveland Browns plus 1.5 against the New Orleans Saints. Saints got that new coach bump last week. The Falcons missed 3 field goals, and the Saints don't have any receivers outside of Marcus Valdes-Scantling. So let's go with the Cleveland Browns. They also have a pass rush, so they should be able to rush the passer, unlike the Falcons. Next, let's go with the Los Angeles Rams minus 4.5 against the New England Patriots. This line does not make any sense at all. You look at the Patriots games against the Jaguars, and you look at their games against the Jets. The Jets were laying 7. The Jaguars were laying 7. You can't tell me that the Rams are worse teams than those teams, so give me the Rams. I think it's a good bounce-back spot. And then finally, we got Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. I'm going with Mike Tyson plus 176. Power is the last thing to go. Jake Paul, he lost to his only real fighter that he's fought, Tommy Fury, Tyson Fury's brother. Mike Tyson, even at 56, 58 years old, should be able to beat this guy. That's what I'm going with.
Going with a little Iron Mike. I like it. Raheem, we got a family play here. I am taking the Los Angeles Rams as well. I call dibs on it. I think it's a great bounce back spot for them. I don't care about the travel. I don't care about the short week. They have to have this game. New England coming off a win. The Ram defense on that front 7 is better than people think. And I expect their offense to get back on track against the New England Patriots. So I'm taking the Rams. And then I got a 2-leg, 2-team teaser for you. Taking the Miami Dolphins, taking them down. I'm also going to take the Green Bay Packers down. All I need them to do is win. Desperate Dolphins, Packers own the Bears, a teaser, and a play. That's going to do it for East Coast Bias. The boys will be back Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern for the Ringer Sunday pregame. For House, Raheem, JJ signing off. Enjoy it. Enjoy Commies Eagles. Be good, everybody.